Good morning, everybody. My name is Colleen Sonderman, and my husband Steve and I have been married for 42 years. We have 4 adult children, ages 34 to 41, and they're all married, and we have 11 grandchildren. I know, they did a good job. We are very proud of them. I was a cancer rehab physical therapist for 42 years, and in June, I retired. And thank you. And I loved my job, and I was very worried about what it was going to be like, and I've been just fine. I think the biggest part has been with the grandchildren. Our kids live coast to coast, and so I think I've been home 8 weeks since June, and it's been really wonderful. They call me, Mimi is my name as the grandma, and they call me Mimi 911. I'm a first responder. I go whenever there's a nanny quits, and I'm there. So it's been really great. So did you ever notice that men and women are not alike? Handwriting. To their credit, men do not decorate their penmanship. They just chicken scratch. Women use scented, colored stationery, and they dot their I's with circles and hearts. Women use ridiculously large loops in their P's and G's, and it's a royal pain to read a note from a woman. Even when she's dumping you, she'll put a smiley face at the end. Bathrooms. A man has at most 6 items in his bathroom: a toothbrush, toothpaste, shaving cream, razor, a bar of soap, and a towel from the Holiday Inn. The average number of items in a typical woman's bathroom is 437, and a man would not be able to identify most of these items. The telephone. Men see the telephone as a communications tool. They use the telephone to send short messages to other people. A woman can visit her girlfriend for 2 weeks, and upon returning home, she will call the same friend, and they will talk for 3 hours. Laundry. Women do laundry every couple of days. A man will wear every article of clothing he owns, including his surgical pants that were hip about 20 years ago, before he'll do his laundry. And when he is finally out of clothes, he will wear a dirty sweatshirt inside out, rent a U-Haul, and take his mountain of clothes to the laundromat, and expect to meet a beautiful woman while he's there. Plants. A woman will ask a man to water her plants while she is on vacation. The man will water her plants. The woman returns 5 days later to an apartment full of dead plants. No one knows why this happens. So in order for us to really look at the top 10 things that every wife wishes her husband knew, I think we need to look at some of the differences between men and women. This will help us in understanding how you can tailor your love specifically to your wife's unique needs. Now, this list is not all-inclusive, and it certainly isn't true for every specific man and woman, but these concepts are generally true. Men tend to be more task-oriented, and women tend to be more relational. Men tend to define who they are through their ability to achieve results. This leads them to be more focused on objects and things, their goals and tasks, rather than on people and feelings. Women tend to define who they are by the quality of their relationships. To share their feelings is more important than achieving goals. So you can see it in the way that men and women approach going to lunch. A man goes to lunch for 2 reasons. One, it's an efficient way to approach food, and it's a good place to solve a problem. Women have very different reasons for being at lunch. It's a place to be served and nurtured. So they notice everything. The atmosphere is important, the food is important, how the table is set is important, and it's also a place where they can grow a relationship. So no wonder Steve and I have trouble when we go to lunch, because he sits down, wolfs his food down, and wants to get out of there. And I'm ordering a decaf and wanting to sit and talk, and we clash. Men tend to be more big picture people, and women tend to be more detail oriented. Men are able to objectively look at a situation and see clearly the big picture. They relate to people in situations but don't become entwined with them. Women look at a situation and they see the details. Even a look can be a big issue for a woman. They become an intimate part of the people they know and even the things they have. So you look at our house. So Steve looks at our house and he says, we have a couch, a chair, a big TV, and a remote. We're set. We don't need anything else. My perspective, I notice all the worn areas on the couch where our 100-pound dog has worn the leather down. I notice the hundreds of tiny claw marks from where the cat jumps off one of our chairs and puts holes in it. I don't think I'm being picky that maybe after 20 years we might be able to get something new, but we have a different perspective. We also have the same thing happens to us when we go to a party. That we'll get in the car after the party and Steve will say, oh, wasn't that great? Because he hung out with his 4 guy friends and they talked Packers and Bucks and Brewers and it was wonderful. I had a miserable time because he hardly talked to me. He didn't even acknowledge me. He didn't even notice me. And so we clash. Men are cave dwellers and women are fireside talkers. When men are stressed, they go into their proverbial caves. They become increasingly focused and have a tendency to withdraw. They do this so they can solve their problem. When women are stressed, they become increasingly overwhelmed and get more emotionally involved. Talking helps get their problems out in the open and decreases their stress level. So where do Steve and I see it? When we both get home from work. When he gets home from work, he wants to sit in that recliner, he wants to turn on ESPN and relax. When I get home from work, I want to sit down right next to him and tell him every single thing that happened that day, because that's the way I relieve my stress. And we clash. Finally, men are instinctively motivated sexually, and women see their sexuality always in the context of relationship. Men come into marriage with a strong, automatic desire for sex. They need little or no preparation. It's there. They're ready anytime, anywhere. Women see their sexuality not as an end in itself, but always in the context of relationship. They need to feel emotionally nurtured before they are sexually aroused. The most common complaint amongst my peers is the seeming incompatibility of women and men's sexual needs and how this brings significant hurt into their marriage. So, because there are such physical, emotional, and sexual differences between men and women, the needs that each one has are very unique. I can't speak from personal experience as to what the needs are for men. But I can speak to you about what my specific needs are and what many women have shared with me. Now, a few things about this list, because I am going to give you a list. It's not exhaustive. This list certainly doesn't apply to every woman. And this list is in no specific order. However, it's simple. And I'll give you 2 to 3 word little subtitles to help you remember it. So if you think about it, pull out a piece of paper or something and take some notes. It'll make me feel better, like you're really with me. And then you can show it to your wife when you get home and say, look what I went to. I went to this thing for you. And so that'll really be awesome. The other little thing that is a difference between you and me is that I'm a talker. So even though I have 2 to 3 little subtitles, then I'm going to go on and on and on after each one. And I remember the first time I gave this talk, there was a guy in the front row, and after I went to the second point, he goes, I already have 10 points. And I was like, no, that was just the first point. So I'll try to clue you in, okay? So number 1, listen to me. It is very important that you listen to your wife. It's more important than sex, than gifts, than solving her problems. Listening makes a woman feel loved and significant. There was a priest, Father Gene Jakubik, who was very, very good friends with my parents. And he used to say, love is spelled L-I-S-T-E-N. So several points I want to make about listening. So here's where I go on and on. Listening is distinctly different from hearing. Steve has an incredible ability to hear. He can be like reading the newspaper, he can be watching a game on ESPN, and he can be having this great conversation with me. And at any point I can say, hey, what are you reading? Boom, he'll tell me. Hey, what's the score of the game? Boom, he'll tell me what the score of the game. I'll say, what did I just say? And he will repeat verbatim what I just said. He's not listening. He is mechanically hearing. That's all he's doing. So listening involves a lot of things, but there are three main things that what listening really is. The first one is eye contact. Your wife needs to know that you are with her. Our eldest daughter, our kids grew up here at Elmbrook, and our eldest daughter went to a retreat. And it was called the Ultimate Date Weekend. Well, all the kids called it sex camp because they knew that's what it really was, but they called it this other thing. And so at one point in the weekend, they took and they were all in high school, they took all the boys on one side of the room and all the girls on the other side of the room. And they said, we're gonna let you guys ask each other questions, whatever you want. Well, every girl raised their hand. You know, they had questions. So the first question was, this gal said, she stood up and said, why don't you look into our eyes when you talk to us? And Kristen said, this little boy way in the back of the room with red hair, she said she never knew he could speak. She had never heard him speak before. She knew him, but she thought he was mute. He stood up immediately and he said, because if we look into your eyes, it's like you're peering into our souls. And then he sat back down. And I know it might feel that way. And your wife probably is peering into your soul, but that's a really important part of talking. Volleying in conversation, restating, commenting. I think for women, sometimes they feel like they're playing tennis with somebody and they keep lobbing the balls over the net and nothing ever comes back. And that's very frustrating. So to be able to restate what she's saying. Body language. Nodding, not nodding off. Leaning in, not leaning to the side so you can see the score of the game behind her. All those kind of things. Very, very important. But above all else, communicate to your wife that you understand how she feels. And if you don't, then keep talking until you do. A second part of listening, see another subpoint, create a safe environment where she has freedom to share. Some women are insecure and they will defer to the stronger opinion. Help your wife to feel safe to share anything with you. And if it's controversial or different than what you think, still try to listen. Remember, number 3, you may not have to fix it or solve the problem. Or as a good friend of mine says, and he's a man, by the way, sometimes for women, listening is the solution. And I know for Steve, this is really hard for him because he wants to fix it. When I share something with him, he's like got 3 things that, I need to do to make that better. And then I usually get mad. And he doesn't understand why I'm mad. It's because I don't need a solution. I need a listening ear. And for him, that helps me work out the solution. Okay, number 2. Talk to me. Talk to me. Your wife desperately wants you to open up to her. She wants to know what's going on inside of you. For Steve, it seems it's the small talk that leads to the significant talk. So sometimes we have to talk a very long time before he can really delve deep into harder areas. But there are 3 subjects that we have found that really drive us deeper, that help him to open up and really talk to me. One is for him to share his feelings. Try to tell your wife how you're feeling. For my husband, I remember that I said, Steve, how are you feeling? And he said, good. I'm like, that's not a feeling, Steve. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, I'm feeling bad. I'm like, no, that's not a feeling either. And so what we did, and we really did this, we wrote down on an index card feelings, happy, sad, angry, frightened, and he put it in his pocket. And so then I'd say, Steve, how are you feeling? And he'd whip out his index card and he's like, sad. But it was really incredible how it did help us delve deeper into conversations with each other. The second thing would be fears. Your wife wants to know what your concerns are. She wants to know if you're afraid of not providing adequately for your family. She wants to know if you're afraid of losing your job. She wants to know if you're fearful about your health. And she doesn't want to know these things so that you appear weak or needy, but you appear real when you share those things, and that you don't have it all together, and you actually might need her. And then the final one is failures. And this is on the same, area as fear, but it's a little tougher. It really shows your humanness. Sharing our failures, confessing our sins to one another, puts us both at the same level at the foot of the cross. Larry Crabb, who wrote a book, Safest Place on Earth, says this: "It is our weakness, not our competence, that moves others. Our sorrows, not our blessings, that break down the barriers of fear and shame that keep us apart. Our admitted failures, not our paraded successes, that bind us together in hope." So in this area, I think I alluded to it already. For my husband, he needs a lot of small talk. He needs to give me his grocery list of every single thing he did. I mean, he can't just get down and dirty like I can in about 30 seconds. And so for us, quantity time of talking is really important. And we have to make sure our schedule is open enough so that we have the time that he needs to be able to really share. Number 3, study me. In the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, the author talks about men and women being from different planets. We are. And your wife wants you to learn Venetian. She wants you to learn her love language. What you think your wife needs or wants may be totally different from what she actually needs. I'll give you an example. When my husband and I were first married, he was always giving me pajamas, robes, lingerie, and at first I didn't mind, but the more he gave me, the more it started to bug me, because I really didn't want it. And then, as we started to struggle with our sex life, I began to see his gifts as a way of covertly telling me that he wanted more. And I began seeing the gifts as more of a benefit to him than me. And I think I lost it over like a peach Giorgio Armani robe. I think I threw it at him, and he didn't know what hit him. But he hadn't studied me, and he didn't know what I really wanted, and he never really asked. My primary love language is getting gifts, but they needed to be well thought out gifts that showed effort on his part to really know. And if there's an area in our marriage where my husband has grown, it's this. And I'll just give you a little example. So, I don't know how long ago this was, maybe 10 years ago, I ran out of my favorite perfume. And I just casually said that to Steve. And I knew to myself, I'm not going to buy it because it's really expensive. And I thought, we can't really afford it right now. We've got 4 kids in college. It's just too much. And so I didn't say anything. Well, probably a couple days later, when I went to bed, I laid down on the pillow, and there was something hard underneath the pillow. And I looked under the pillow, and there's the perfume. And he had gotten it for me, and he had studied me, and he heard what I was saying. And still to this day, it's probably my favorite thing he ever got me. And it was not because it was extraordinary, but it was because he knew what I needed. And he listened without me having to ask. So something Steve and I did in this area that was really, really helpful. We read an old book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And what we did, which I thought was really helpful, we had a long road trip. I don't know where we were going. And we listened to it on audio. And then he would go, there's 5 love languages that he talks about. The first one is words of affirmation. The second one is gifts of service. The third one is quality time together. The fourth one is gifts. And the fifth one is physical touch. And so what Steve and I would do is we listen to, he would go over words of affirmation, and then we'd stop it. And then I'd say, is that you? Like, is that your, and then he'd ask me if it was, because you probably have more than one, and I mean, for Steve, physical touch, I think that's all he has, that's all he cares about. But, but somebody might have another one too. So, talk to your wife about this. Even if you just say those 5 words, I guarantee you she's going to be able to tell you what hers is. Okay, number 4, encourage me. Your wife needs you to encourage her on a daily basis. If she is a stay-at-home mom, she needs to know that you appreciate all that she does. And she especially needs to know that you don't think she's a marshmallow brain just because she stays home all day. If your wife works outside of the home, she needs to know that you appreciate her skills. She needs to know that she isn't necessarily a bad mom or a bad wife because she chooses to work full-time. As women, in a culture that expects us to be superwomen, we feel guilty no matter what we do. And we need our husbands to support us and encourage us on a daily basis. So how do you do this? I'll tell you how my husband has done it. He has been my number 1 cheerleader. He has helped me to fulfill my dreams and encouraged me financially and practically to do it. He has set aside his agenda so that I can attend continuing education courses. He has done all kinds of things, including caring for the kids, so that I can advance in my career that I loved. He is also my number 1 cheerleader in speaking. I would not be up here if it wasn't for Steve Sonderman. And he's constantly telling me how good I am. And I'm like, I'm terrified to be in front of all these men. He's like, no, you can do it. And he just encourages me in so many areas. And I don't know what I would do without that. It's probably the number 1 thing that I feel like he does. So be your wife's number 1 fan. I think too often we're our spouse's number 1 critic. And she needs that encouragement. Number 5, prioritize me. Your wife needs to know that she is more important than your job or anything else you have in your life. When Steve and I were dating, I was in college, and he's 4 years older than me, so he was still in college, but he was at UWM, and he was coaching football at Brookfield Central High School. He did that for about 7 years. So I was at Madison, and I would come to the games, and it's 20 below or whatever, and I would come and sit in the stands, and then I'd run up to the gate afterwards as he's walking by, and if they had a win, it was great. He was chatty and wanted to talk to me, and we would have this thing. He'd thank me for coming. If they lost, he would be walking by the fence, and he would look at me, and he'd look straight ahead, and he'd keep walking. And he wouldn't even acknowledge that I was there. And little would I know that this was a foreshadowing of a consistent future pattern in our marriage. That once the marriage job was done, Steve had, and still has, a tendency to put work ahead of me. Ephesians 5:33 says this, each one of you must love your wife as you love yourself. Love here means place high value on or importance on. For Steve, it was ministry that took precedence over me, and that's a sticky wicket. For another friend of mine, it was her husband's hobby, hunting. I'll never forget her wedding reception, where right after the wedding dance, all these guys came out in blaze orange, and she sat on a chair, and they sang the Hunting Widow song as they danced around her. And I remember being in a corner crying, thinking, This is a picture of her life. And it is. And it was. I'll also never forget, and I kind of didn't understand it as a kid, what my mom would say to my dad. She would say, I just wish I could be one of your customers instead of your wife. So, look at your calendars. Evaluate how much time is spent with work, with recreation activities, and with hobbies. Does your schedule reflect the priority that your wife is? Look at your heart. Examine where your passion lies. Is it with starting or maintaining your business, or ministry, or sport? Or is it first and foremost following hard after God and loving your wife? And look at your actions. Do they demonstrate a consistent willingness to put your wife number one on the list? Do you demonstrate actively that she is highly valued? Number 6, care for me. Care for me. Ephesians 5:28 and 29 says this, in this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. Take care of your wife and her unique needs. As women, we are natural nurturers, we are natural caretakers, and oftentimes we are so busy taking care of everybody else that we don't take care of ourselves. This application actually goes back to another point that I have about studying her. Figure out what she needs, and don't make her always have to ask for it. Call the babysitter, draw a bath, clean up the dishes. A second thing in this area is love and take care of your children if you have them. For most women, their main job, even if they have another, is to care for the kids. And one of the most loving things you can do is to be involved with caring for the kids. In doing this, you validate a very important role that she has, and you lighten the load she carries. And the best help, again, is when you see a need and initiate it on your own with a good attitude. The good attitude's tough, but important. So put the kids to bed. Help them with their homework. Go to their concerts and conferences. And now that we have adult children, one of the best ways Steve can care for me is when I'll be in the other room and I hear him talking to our daughter Angie in Nashville about things she's struggling with work. Or when he says to me, I got a ticket so I can go with you to Portland to see Tim and Margaret. All those kind of things, so that I don't feel like it's doing it on my own. And when he loves and cares for the kids, I feel like he loves and cares for me. It's connected. Number 7, prepare me. Be tender with her sexually. That means going slow and preparing her. I do not like this analogy, but it is somewhat appropriate. Men are like microwaves. They heat up instantly. Women are more like slow cookers. It takes all day to cook something. And for women, it's not the end that is the most enjoyable, but it's the process getting there. It's the hug in the kitchen in the morning. It's the call at noon just to say hi. It's a candlelit dinner. It's talking together after the kids have gone to bed. It's simply holding her. Trust me, it is the slowness and the gentleness of your preparation of your wife that will lead to the most fulfilling sex life. And for those of you who are empty nesters like my husband and I are, I think you'd think things would get better, but I don't think they do. I think sometimes the longer you're married, the more you become more like roommates instead of like lovers. And that is a huge problem. And so it doesn't matter where you are in your marriage. it's at every point that this is just a really important thing. Number 8, lead with me. We are to be the spiritual leaders of our families together. And even though Steve is in full-time Christian ministry, I am usually the one to initiate prayer together. I am usually the one who is in tune to where the kids are at spiritually. I am usually the one who thinks of creative ways to help the kids or the grandchildren with spiritual formation, and I desire more than anything for Steve to be more involved in this. So it doesn't matter if you're in ministry. It really doesn't. I think it's more just the differences between a man and a woman. So Ephesians 6:4 says this, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." You know, there's so many resources for parents today. Talk to your pastor, talk to your friends about what they do with spiritual formation with their kids, and be actively involved in their spiritual development. Number 9, free me. A critical need of your wife is to have deep relationships with other women. She needs a lot of time in relationship to really feel loved and nurtured. Free her so that she is able to spend the time she needs with other women that she loves. Value that time as much as she does. While the kids are still at home, Steve blocked out every Tuesday night so I could go hang with my 3 best friends. He doesn't know what I could possibly talk about at lunch with a friend for 3 hours, but he understands that this is a deep need I have. He still makes fun of me, but he wants me to do that. And what we have found, and this is true for Steve too, because he also has this need. And I think sometimes men expect their wife to fulfill all those relational needs, and that doesn't work either. And I am naturally a friendship maker, but he isn't as much. And so both of us need to do this, because when we both have healthy relationships with friends, we aren't so needy with each other and aren't expecting every single thing from each other. So number 10, finally done, date me. Date me. This is one of the best ways for you to show your wife that you value your relationship and that she is a top priority. It's going to cost you time and it's going to cost you money, but it is well worth the investment. And if you have small children, sometimes your wife may even be a little reluctant in this area. We live in a culture that puts children at the center of the marriage instead of the husband and wife at the center of the marriage. When our kids were all grown up and we were sitting around the kitchen table and we said, "Hey, you guys, what did we do right in parenting and what did we do wrong?" Well, they went on and on about all the things that we went wrong. And Steve's like, "Hey, like, throw us a bone. Did we do anything right?" And they said, "You did one thing right." They said, "You loved each other." And they said, "We saw it every time you went out on a date. We saw it every time that you and Dad would be talking at the kitchen table and would tell us to go watch TV because you needed time alone." And it is the most unbelievable thing, because guess what? Your parenting time goes real quick, and all of a sudden it's just the two of you. And gray divorce is the #1 divorce time now. Once the kids are gone, there's the highest rate of divorce because the relationship was never nurtured. You stop dating each other, and it's a big problem. So what Steve and I did, because I think sometimes women are reluctant because they got to call a babysitter. They got to write this whole list of everything they have to figure out what you're going to do. It's just like, it just feels like too much. What we did is we would go every other time. So when it was Steve's time for a date, he would decide what we were going to do. He would call the babysitter. He would write out the list. He did every single thing for it. And my only rule was that I had to accept what we did. And if we went to the Brewers game, and if then we went to the Bucks game, and whatever we did, I had to shut my mouth. I couldn't complain. I thought, I'll get him. We'll go to a musical next week. But it has been critical. I still really like him after 42 years. But it's because we worked at it really hard. Every single year of our 42-year marriage, we took 5 to 7 day vacation. And we did it. I mean, we would leave our kids with anybody. Are you breathing? Okay, we got to get out of here. And so, and we would always say this, that we have old furniture, we have an old house, but we have a vibrant marriage. So we have a little mantra, we always say it: talk daily, date weekly, and retreat yearly. And when we say retreat, we mean like go to the beach. And so I want to conclude with a story that sort of wraps up everything that I've said to you. Robertson McQuilkin, former president of Columbia Bible College, resigned from his post to care for his wife, who was suffering from advancing Alzheimer's disease. Let me read to you an excerpt from his resignation letter to the board, and I believe this will be instructional and motivational to you as you seek to love your wives. My dear wife Muriel has been in failing mental health for about 8 years. So far, I've been able to carry both her ever-growing needs and my leadership responsibilities at CBC. But recently, it has become apparent that Muriel is contented most of the time she is with me and almost none of the time I am away from her. And it's not just discontent. She is filled with fear, even terror that she has lost me and always goes in search of me when I leave home. Then she may be full of anger when she cannot get to me, so it's clear to me that she needs me now full time. Perhaps it would help you to understand if I shared with you what I shared at the time of the announcement of my resignation in chapel. The decision was made in a way 42 years ago when I promised to care for Muriel in sickness and in health till death us do part. So as I told the students and faculty, as a man of my word, integrity has something to do with it, but so does fairness. She has cared for me fully and sacrificially all these years. If I cared for her for the next 40 years, I would not be out of debt. Duty, however, can be grim and stoic, but there is more. I love Muriel. She is a delight to me. Her childlike dependence and confidence in me, her warm love, occasional flashes of that wit I used to relish so, her happy spirit and tough resilience in the face of her continually distressing frustration. I do not have to care for her. I get to. It is a high honor to care for so wonderful a person. God has given you a gift of your wife, and it's a high honor that you get to take care of her. So thank you so much for letting me speak.